Greetings everyone, this is Curtis Duncan, and today I wanted to do a video on why sugar, not soul food, is killing blacks. I recently watched a film called Soul Food Junkies, where, the film was talking about essentially how traditional culinary culture of African Americans is killing them. And, that traditional culture being soul food. And the film, had some really good points about, the origins of soul food and, why it's hurting us, and, just some good information about African Americans' health. And I felt as though the film, while, I disagree with a lot of information in it as far as from a nutritional standpoint, it did raise some valid questions, because the film was more so inquiry. It wasn't like real designed to give people information. It was inquiry. Based upon the director's experience with his father dying of pancreatic cancer, which I will explain why his father probably died from that. And, just kind of looking at, African Americans and why we're so sick, essentially. And, even though I disagree with a lot of the points in the film, I felt as though the film did have some redeeming qualities. But again, in just, thinking overall, definitely soul food is not killing black people. Number one, black people don't consume soul food on a consistent basis. We consume fast food and processed food. So, for not consuming soul food, fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, collard greens, sweet potatoes, or candied yams on a consistent basis, then that can't be the cause of our health problems. But we are consuming fast food. We are consuming processed food, the stuff, what you get from, from Walmart, and Kroger and some of these other stores, etc. And we are consuming a lot of sugar. So, when you really look at it and, you really know nutrition, then you will know that, soul food, inherently is, is not as bad as consuming sugar. Prime example is, when you think of the average soul food meal, you have fried chicken, you have collard greens, you have candied yams, you have macaroni and cheese. Now, again, I don't recommend people ever consume soul food, which again, soul food is bad on a consistent basis. But we aren't consuming that on a consistent basis. But yet we're still suffering all these, really, really chronic health problems. So, for example, a lot of the culinary tradition of African Americans, comes from the South. In the South, they did not use refined vegetable oils like we use today in soul food. They rarely consumed a lot of wheat because wheat was a grain which you had to grow, and you had to grow like on huge farms. So, you probably, if you were eating cornbread, it was like all corn. And if you were consuming sugar, again, sugar was like a treat. It wasn't something that you ate on a consistent basis. So really a lot of the soul food that we're eating now and that blacks eat now comes from them being within cities, being in Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, Baltimore, where they had easy access to a lot of these foods, which are really, really toxic, particularly the wheat and the sugar. Because that's probably the most toxic things about soul food. It's not the fat, which again, the fat, there's some fats which are good, some fats which are bad. The bad fats are the refined vegetable oils, the Crisco, the shortening, pretty much any type of oil you find within a restaurant, a fast food place, and most of your grocery stores. Because in most of your grocery stores, you're not going to find lard, pastured lard. You're not going to find palm oil. You're not going to find coconut oil. You're not going to find healthy fats. You're just not. You're going to find the toxic, genetically modified fats. And that's what we use to make soul food with. That's what we use to make fried chicken with. And again, when you fry chicken and some of these toxic genetically modified oils, then you will develop heart disease, because when you fry with these oils, which are again highly refined and are mostly polyunsaturated fats, then you are going to increase your risk of developing heart disease, because the fats actually oxidize when they're being fried. And it is the oxidization of cholesterol within the heart vessels which actually causes and promotes heart disease and atherosclerosis, or basically the hardening of the arteries. So when you're consuming, these rancid vegetable oils, which again, are not ever meant to be fried with, and oxidize when exposed to excessive amounts of heat, then that's going to, cause the cholesterol in your body to oxidize, and the cholesterol is going to build up, and you will eventually develop heart disease. But a long time ago, we weren't eating, black people weren't eating, these highly refined oils. But now we are, because we consume mostly fast food. But a long time ago, we consumed lard. That's what we made cornbread with. That's what we made fried chicken with. And again, it wasn't something that we ate on a consistent basis. It was during, certain ceremonies, rituals, holidays, etc., etc. But now we're consuming, a lot of these different foods, particularly the processed foods, the wheat, the sugar on a very, very consistent basis, and it's killing us. So that's the major problem with soul food today. A lot of it is, made with genetically modified ingredients, and it's made with these highly refined vegetable oils. Now, as far as fried chicken, the main problem with that is whenever you fry a carbohydrate, that includes potatoes, donuts, whenever you're frying a carbohydrate, then it actually creates compounds known as acrylamides, which are essentially carcinogens which develop during the frying process. So that's why you should not be consuming fried carbohydrates on a consistent basis. Of course, the sugar is toxic, and I'm going to get into that. So, candied yams, even though sweet potatoes are really, really good for you, when you're adding a pound of sugar to the yams and marshmallows, etc., then you are just totally stripping them of their nutritional value. Collard greens are great. They're actually good for preventing breast cancer and prostate cancer. But when you are, cooking the foods for 5 hours, then you are dramatically diminishing the nutritional value of those particular foods. And of course, the macaroni and cheese, it has the wheat, which is a modified grain, which dramatically raises your blood sugar, causes diabetes, obesity, and heart disease, because high blood sugar is essentially the mother of all diseases. I will say that again. High blood sugar, not high cholesterol, high blood sugar is the mother of all diseases. And blacks here in America have extremely high blood sugar. We have high blood pressure too, but blacks here in America also have high blood sugar, which essentially is the reason why we have very high rates of type 2 diabetes, which is very underdiagnosed here in this country, because there's such a push for getting people on cholesterol medication. Doctors rarely test for it. So you'll go to a doctor, you'll be 300 pounds, have belly fat, again, which are all signs of having high blood sugar, because insulin actually governs whether you gain or lose weight. It is actually your fat storing and promoting hormone. So the higher insulin levels, the more weight that you will have upon your body. Most doctors don't test for it. They'll say, okay, let's test for your cholesterol. Let's test if your PSA, whether you have prostate cancer. Let's test this. Let's do a mammogram. Let's do this. But they're not going to test your blood sugar. And they probably will eventually, because, big pharma's like, okay, we got them on the cholesterol meds. Now we got to get people on the diabetes meds. So eventually you will see a push, particularly in the black community, for people to get blood sugar tests. And when you're found out to have high blood sugar, they'll get you on a blood sugar lowering pill, which, those diabetes medications are extremely toxic. Avandia and some of these other pills, which Big Pharma is producing, actually kill people. So you definitely don't ever get on any cholesterol lowering drugs or any diabetes drugs. Those drugs are the absolute worst. So, again, soul food, it's not something we're consuming on a consistent basis, but it's not killing us. And in the film, it actually talks about how dietary fat is so bad, and, we're consuming fatty foods and meat. And for the record, saturated fat does not cause heart disease. There have never been any scientific studies of value, because again, a lot of science out here is bullshit. So, you have to be careful. A lot of these corporations, they put out studies to intentionally manipulate people. So a lot of studies out here are complete bullshit and are completely fucking worthless. So you have to be careful about the studies, the China study and all these other propaganda studies which you are listening to. But essentially, it is not true that saturated fat causes heart disease. It is not true that cholesterol causes heart disease. So what does? High blood sugar causes heart disease. And if you have high blood sugar as a result of consuming wheat and as a result of consuming sugar, then you will develop diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, and you also will, die early, because, it's going to clog your arteries. All the high blood sugar will. And that is a documented fact. But again, and the film mentions all the fatty foods. It's always, since the government came out in the 70s and told people to get on a low-fat diet and consume more carbohydrates, there has just been the complete demonization of fat in this country. And it's all based upon lies. It is not based upon anything true. And I'll post some links for that down below here, pretty soon. But it's not based upon truth, because people were told to, just avoid all fat, when there's some fats which you should avoid, i.e. the highly refined vegetable oils, most of which are genetically modified. So that includes corn oil, safflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil, etc. Those oils should be avoided. But the good fats are your pastured butter, your pastured lard, your organic palm oil, your organic coconut oil, your fish oil, and your omega-3 fats from wild-caught salmon, mackerel, and sardines. And I'm sorry, there's another, and herring, which, essentially your omega-3 fats. Those are your good fats. And there's a really good book which you all should check out called Know Your Fats, and it talks about the bad fats and the good fats, because if you're just trying to avoid fatty foods and avoid meat, then you're really doing yourself a disservice, because meat, again, does not cause heart disease, and cholesterol does not cause heart disease. And if you're avoiding all fats, then you're going to consume excess carbohydrates. You're going to be consuming wheat, potatoes, etc., which again increase your risk of developing heart disease. But again, to get into why sugar, so again, most of the soul food we're consuming, again, is toxic because most of it is genetically modified. But the notion that, because it's fatty, it's the reason why it's killing us and clogging our arteries is just totally, complete, nonsensical bullshit. Is not true. It is just not true. Because fat, again, depending upon the fats you're using, does not cause heart disease. If you're consuming a lot of saturated fats, butter, lard, palm oil, coconut oil, you're actually decreasing your risk of developing heart disease. You're consuming shortening, if you're consuming shortening, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil, or so-called rape oil, you're going to develop heart disease. Because again, those oils, when you cook with them, they oxidize. And it is the oxidization of cholesterol within the body which causes heart disease. And that's very, very important for you all to know that. So now, getting into why sugar is killing us. Well, the reason why sugar is killing us is because, number one, blacks here in America are the biggest consumers of sugar. Black men are the biggest consumers of sugar in the male population, and black women are the biggest consumers of sugar in the female population. This weekend, you have the Essence Festival, and it's sponsored by Coca-Cola. Okay. Now, again, I'm a business person. I studied business. I got my MBA from Clark Atlanta University. So Coca-Cola, they're a corporation, and they're not gonna just sponsor events, in demographics or so-called ethnic groups that are not consuming their product. So essentially, if I'm a corporation and I want to continue to promote my product within a certain target community that I already know is consuming that particular product, then I'm going to sponsor their cultural events. So essentially, you're not going to see Coca-Cola, that's a bad example. You're not going to see a company which makes pork sausage sponsor a Muslim conference. They're just not going to do it because, they're Muslims, they're not going to consume pork. But, if I'm Coca-Cola and I know, hey, my product is found in every single black neighborhood, poor, rich, middle class, etc. in the country, and this target demographic are my biggest consumers, they are my heavy users, then without a doubt, I want to continue to get them to consume this product. And they do. These sugar companies, these fast food companies, because also McDonald's is also one of the large purveyors of the conference to the Essence Music Festival, and McDonald's being a company that is one of Coca-Cola's primary distributors. Because most people, when they go to McDonald's, what do they get? They get a fry, they get the hamburger, and they get a 32-ounce Coke, or about 120 grams of sugar. Now, mind you, the American Heart Association says you should consume no more than 20 grams of sugar. So when you consume 32 ounces of soda, you are consuming almost, 6 times the amount of sugar which the American Heart Association says that you should be consuming. And again, if you do the research, blacks are the highest consumers of sugar in this country. They are, for various reasons. And that is killing black people because sugar causes high blood pressure. Blacks have a higher risk for developing high blood pressure. Sugar causes diabetes. Blacks have a higher risk of getting type 2 diabetes. Sugar causes obesity. Blacks have a higher risk of developing obesity. Sugar causes heart disease. Blacks have a higher risk of developing heart disease. And sugar also causes kidney disease. Blacks have a higher risk of developing kidney disease too. And the reason why sugar causes kidney disease is because of the phosphoric acid, the phosphorus. The phosphorus actually causes you develop, kidney failure. And that's one of the reasons why so many blacks in this country have to undergo, have to get dialysis. And have to get on these dialysis treatments because their kidneys just break down because soda contains high amounts of phosphorus in it. So again, blacks, we are, particularly young black males. Young black males are actually the biggest consumers of sugary beverages in this country here. Young black, and that's because the companies, they put up young black males heroes. They put Drake, the rapper, in the ads. They put LeBron James. They put Kobe Bryant. They use all these, these heroes, these cultural heroes for young black males. And that's why blacks consume high amounts of soda, young black males in particular. And again, when you really do the research, you kind of see the link between sugar and all these different conditions. Sugar is a toxin, particularly fructose. And most of the sugar that we are consuming, blacks in this country, is high fructose corn syrup, which is genetically modified and contains about 65% fructose. 65 to about 80% fructose. And the more the fructose is found within high fructose corn syrup, the more addictive it is. And that's the reason why we consume so much sugar in this country, because sugar is as addictive as crack cocaine. And when you go to the average black community, that's all you see at the corner stores, the grocery stores, etc., etc. So the government, they keep focusing on, we need to make healthier foods available for more African Americans because they live in food deserts, which is true. But again, okay, if I can go to McDonald's and get 32 ounces of soda, that's bad. But if I can go to Walmart and get a gallon of soda, that's even worse. And again, with Walmart moving into many black communities now, that's what blacks are going to be able to get. They're going to be able to get a whole bunch of soda at a very, very low price, because Walmart, that's their motto. We make things available for a low price. And again, not to get into Walmart because they're just another criminal corporation which is actually destroying people's health and destroying communities because they just take over all the businesses within those particular communities and impoverish them. That's another story. But again, also sugar causes belly fat. You see plenty of black men, they look like Rick Ross now. They just, they look like women. They got breasts and they got this huge belly. And many black women too, belly fat, high amounts of belly fat. And belly fat is also increased risk, also increases your risk of developing heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. So, when you really do the research, you see that dietary fat is not what's killing us. Meat is not what's killing us. And again, a lot of the meat that blacks consume in America is toxic. The bacon, which contains high amounts of sodium nitrate, comes off a factory farm, is toxic. The meat, the beef, and the chicken, which is raised with hormones, antibiotics, all that's toxic, very, very toxic. But again, the idea that just because it's meat that's going to kill us and clog our arteries is just not true. That is BS. It is the sugar. And and again, I watch. I had a buddy of mine who works with me. He said, "Oh man, you shouldn't eat pork because pork's going to kill you." But this guy, he consumes 20 ounces of soda a day. And it is well known the more soda you consume, the increased risk you have of developing heart disease because of the sugar. And there's a great lecture which everyone should watch called Sugar, the Bitter Truth. And this documents how we demonize dietary fat and people start consuming more carbohydrates, particularly sugar, in that time frame. And during that time frame is when we had just dramatic increases of obesity. We had the dramatic increases in diabetes, and heart disease has not gone down, even though we're eating less dietary fat. Because overall, here in America, and many blacks, many blacks who are trying to do the right thing, incorporate more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, etc., etc. They're eating less meat. They're not eating pork and bacon. They're eating less of that, but they're still getting fatter. They're still developing heart disease. They're still developing diabetes, and they're confused. Like, man, I'm working out, and I'm avoiding, the meat and the bacon, but, doc, I'm still 250 pounds. I still have high blood pressure, and no one's telling them that it is the carbohydrates that they're eating, the sugar in particular, which again, blacks are the highest consumers of, because, number one, corporations intentionally promote sugary foods, sugary cereals, and sugary soft drinks. Again, they sponsor events like the Essence Music Festival. That's just basically just one big billboard for Coca-Cola and McDonald's, essentially. And they make sure that these sugary drinks are available in every single black community in the nation, as any good drug dealer should, because Coca-Cola is a drug dealer. They are a corporate drug dealer. And their business is selling highly addictive, sugary soft drinks, which they actually make more addictive by adding caffeine to the crap. And they make sure that this is widely available. They make sure that these sodas are available in black schools, black colleges. They make sure the drinks are available at black high schools, elementary schools. And the people complain, the sugary drinks are bad for our kids, and it's rotting their teeth out, and which it does, and causing cavities. Then they just say, oh, well, okay, well, we'll just give them diet soda, which is just as toxic because it contains aspartame, or we'll give them Gatorade, which again still has almost about 30 grams of sugar in it. And Gatorade is nothing more than, it's just a sugary drink. And you're consuming Gatorade instead of consuming soda. That's almost like, drinking a gallon of bleach, and instead of just cutting out the bleach a little bit and drinking only a half gallon. It's still poison. It's still toxic. It still contains high fructose corn syrup, but it is sugar, which is killing blacks. Because again, every single disease that blacks have high rates of can be directly correlated to our high sugar consumption. And again, there's other factors, because, you have the genetically modified foods. So you have, the refined oils that blacks are consuming in the fast foods and the processed foods, etc. But again, the primary toxin that blacks consume on a consistent basis, because again, if it's soul food, which is killing us, then, we should have been developing a lot of these problems, in the 1900s. And not to say that we didn't, but, heart disease and diabetes really has been on the uptick since about the 70s and 60s, when the government told us, eat less fat, eat less bacon, eat less saturated fat. And the corporation came along and actually found a cheap alternative for regular, sugar, or sugarcane sugar, and they started adding corn syrup, because corn syrup is subsidized by the government. Corn farmers, they grow corn like the world produces air. We just produce tons of corn in this country, and it's dirt cheap. And that's why the soda manufacturers add it to everything, and food corporations add to everything, because it makes the food more addictive, and it's dirt cheap. It costs, when you get a 32 ounce of soda from McDonald's or from 7-Eleven, it might cost the retailer 20 cents, but they're making almost like an 800% profit. Because they're selling it for like $1. It costs them nothing, because most of the crap is subsidized by the government. And they develop economies of scale, so they produce so much of it, it lowers the price, but of course, they sell it to you and, at a high markup, so they increase their profits, and that's the reason why, so many of us are consuming large amounts of soda, because the companies were, okay, how can we get people to consume more? You know what? We're going to put the soda in 20-ounce bottle instead of the 12-ounce bottle, because we put in a 20-ounce bottle, kind of make sure that the 12-ounce bottles aren't available, they'll consume more of it. It's just simple food marketing. If we sell them 64-ounce cups and make the smallest cup a 20-ounce cup, then we get them to consume more soda. And especially we tell them that they're getting a deal. So if you're consuming 64 ounces of soda, man, that's almost like 200 grams of sugar. You are definitely on your way to your grave. You might as well buy a life insurance policy now. But it is essentially the sugar. And I wanted to make a video on this because there's so many misconceptions out there about nutrition and health, particularly in the African American community. And me as a so-called African American, it does concern me. And I do have friends and family of mine that, they think they're doing something by avoiding bacon and all these other fatty foods, but they're consuming orange juice, Gatorade, vitamin water, Sprite, Coca-Cola, Fanta, grape soda, all these other different sugary beverages, and they wonder why they're so sick. They wonder why they're so fat. They wonder why they can't get an erection, because the soda makes you impotent, too. And the bisphenol A contains feminizing chemicals, which actually cause men to develop prostate cancer and cause women to develop breast cancer. So when you're consuming the 12-ounce cans, you're also not only you're being exposed to the sugary drink, which is a poison, and the fructose, which actually causes liver failure and causes cirrhosis of the liver, and also causes fatty liver disease, which again is on the increase here in America. But you're also getting the bisphenol A, which again, I mean, is a very toxic estrogenic chemical, which increases your risk of developing heart disease, increases your risk of developing diabetes, and increases your risk of developing breast cancer and prostate cancer. So that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I mean, there is, as far as heart disease in African Americans, because heart disease is the #1 killer of blacks in this country, that is caused by sugar, without a doubt, and the refined vegetable oils. It's not caused by the fatty meats. It's not caused by fried chicken and bacon and pork. It's not. And I'm not telling you to consume fried chicken on a consistent basis. I already explained the dangers of that, particularly the dangers of frying carbohydrates. And definitely, I mean, those fast food fried chicken joints, definitely those places are to be avoided. Mrs. Winners, Popeyes, KFC, toxic, toxic, toxic. Avoid it with your life. I don't care how much Oprah promotes it and says, oh, well, they're making baked chicken now. It's still toxic. I don't care whether it's baked, whether it's, whether they put it, whether they add some tofu to it. It's toxic. Avoid it. So you definitely want to avoid fast food. You definitely want to avoid processed foods. And you definitely want to avoid sugary soft drinks. And that includes fruit juice. That includes Gatorade. And that also includes vitamin water. All those things are toxic. Very, very toxic, because they're loaded in fructose. And fructose is the #1 cause of heart disease in this country. And after that, probably, a few factors down would be the refined vegetable oils. But it is the sugar, because the sugar causes the high blood sugar. It causes the high blood pressure. It causes, it actually increases the levels of your bad cholesterol, which actually sticks to your arteries, your smaller LDL cholesterol, because you have HDL, which is supposedly your good cholesterol, and your LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. And I mean, it's kind of like a euphemism, because, they're not bad. It's just that the LDL cholesterol tends to oxidize and sticks to your arteries when you are exposed to, the refined vegetable oils and to the sugar. And then, and the sugar causes that. It causes the metabolic syndrome, the belly fat. It also causes, the kidney failure, which again, if your kidneys stop working, then you're also at increased risk of developing heart disease too. And it causes type 2 diabetes. And if you understand diabetes, then you understand that, diabetes is really the hallmark of just about every other disease that you could think of. So that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. It is the sugar. The sugar, which is pure, white, and deadly. But again, most of us now are consuming fructose, or we're consuming agave or maple syrup. It doesn't matter. If you are consuming more than 20 grams of sugar per day, then you are, and that includes honey, raw honey too, then you are dramatically increasing your risk of developing heart disease. So that's what's going on with blacks here in America. We're sugarholics. We're sugar addicts. We're sugar junkies, blacks in this country. And it's killing us. Because it is just as addictive as crack cocaine. You have some very, very well-financed corporate drug dealers who spend billions of dollars on advertising this crap to black children on BET and on billboards. They spend billions of dollars, giving out scholarships to black students, which again acts as a form of advertising. They've made sure that their product is available in every single black community. And they have the government on their side, because the government tells people that, oh, saturated fat is bad, and sugar, oh, that's harmless. FDA says it's harmless. USDA says it's harmless, because the USDA and the FDA are controlled by the corporations. So of course they're going to say it's harmless. Of course they are. They're not going to admit that, the stuff that they're telling, the advice that they're giving people is killing them. Not going to admit that, because you might stop listening to your government. You might stop trusting your government. It's amazing. It's amazing to me how people, they won't trust that government when it comes to war, but they'll say, oh, yeah, well, government says to eat whole grains, and yeah, I'll do that. If you don't trust the government when it comes to war, then you definitely shouldn't trust them when it comes to nutrition. Definitely, if you understand the business of agriculture in this country, which is big business, the business of disease care, the business of food, agriculture, huge businesses, and they have tons of well-financed, corporations and so-called nutritional organizations, which take money from McDonald's and Coca-Cola and tell people, mislead people about the dangers of soda and some of these other processed and fast foods. So they have a well-financed army, public relations specialists, so-called scientists who put out studies saying that sugar is harmless and it's benign, it doesn't cause heart disease or diabetes, etc. So you're dealing with some well-heeled and very intelligent and manipulative individuals here. But it definitely, again, if you want to just decrease your risk of developing heart disease, if you want to lose weight, decrease your risk of developing diabetes, decrease your risk of developing kidney disease, avoid all sugary drinks. And that includes fruit juice too. That includes vitamin water. That includes Gatorade. And just greatly reduce your consumption of all sugary foods. You should consume no more than 20 grams of sugar per day. So thank you all for watching this video. Please share this. It's a very important video because, again, there's a lot of misinformation out there as far as people's health, and I wanted to address this in this video. So please share this. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do also offer nutritional and health consultations for those of you who like to learn more about health and nutrition. I've been studying health now for the past 10 years. I'm one of the world's most knowledgeable health experts because I've done so much independent research. So you can definitely schedule a consultation with me to learn more about the work, about my work and what I can offer to you. I do also offer free consultations so you can learn more about my services. Also, check out some links and posts down below for men, called The Chemical Feminization and Masculinization of Men, and Live Fibroid Free. And again, thank you all for watching this video. Please share it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.